Hello and welcome to the Deanna Herron podcast show. This is Deanna Herron, your host. Thank you so much for being a part of this amazing community created by this podcast. If you haven't had an opportunity to listen to last week's podcast, I give you 8 traits to be great. 8 traits that I have incorporated into my life over the last 10 years that have been game changers for me. So, if you haven't listened to it, make sure to go back after this podcast. I would love your insight. On today's podcast, we are going to be talking about leadership. Leadership is such a buzzword, and it's a word that really needs to be defined. And so what we're going to talk about today is, and before you hit that pause button, this is about you. And here's the reason why, you guys, we all lead. We all lead. And so I want to attempt to really give you some tools that you can use to go to that next level leadership. So knowing that we all lead in some way, I want to teach you how to be an extraordinary leader. So we're going to step it up just a little bit. So this podcast is about you and will help you in your personal life, your business life, and your family life as well. So first and foremost, I want you to know you are a leader. Every single day you lead. You lead your family, you lead at your job, you lead when you're in the car, you lead when you're in the grocery store. And here's the reason why: people are watching what you're doing. That's leadership. Would you like to know how to really lead well? That's what I want to talk about. So I'm going to give you some tips on how you can become an extraordinary leader. So let's get started. Many years ago, when I had achieved a level of success in my business, I was asked to speak at my first large event. Okay. My team was exploding, and everybody wanted to hear what in the world I was doing in my business. And this was the first large event that I'd had actually been asked to speak at. And I want you to know that my biggest fear was public speaking. That was my biggest fear ever. I mean, it was huge, huge fear. And so I was, nervous getting up there and speaking to people. And I remember when I was introduced, the person who introduced me, she said, I want to introduce to you Deanna Herron. She is a great leader. And I'm standing waiting to go up on that stage, and I'm thinking, leader? Why did she just call me a leader? Why did she just call me a leader? Now remember, I come from a background of medicine. And so that was the first time that I heard the word leader when it comes to me. And I want you to know, around that time of this event, I had about 20 people on my team. So I clearly was leading, but I wasn't sure what she was talking about, me in particular, about being a leader. So when I got off stage, I went directly to the person and I thanked her for asking me to share my story and share tips, etc. And then I asked her, I said, you know what? I'm just not sure about being a great leader. What did you mean by being a great leader? I don't know if you think that way, but that's how I thought, you guys. It was true. I never saw myself as a leader. I never saw myself a leader. And here's why. In my eyes, a leader was someone with a very high rank, like a CEO, a president, or a quote manager, right? Manager of a restaurant, a manager of a department store. That to me was a leader. Another thing that I thought of leadership was that you had to have a certain skill set in order to lead a massive amount of people. Massive, not 20, not one or two, but a massive number. I don't know what you think about leadership, but that's what I thought the word leadership meant. So when you look at the president of the United States, you think leader. When you look at a CEO of a company, you think leader, right? I wasn't that. And I also was thinking, I don't feel like I lead because really I just love these people on my team and I want the very best for them. That's what I want. I want the very best from these people. And so let's walk through those real quick. First of all, you don't need a title to lead. Robin Sharma wrote a great book, Lead Without a Title. Lead without a title. You are a leader and you don't have to have a title. Okay. Your title just can be leader. I know many people with a title who aren't leaders. So the title doesn't define leadership. What you do defines leadership. So there may be, quote, leaders that have a team or people that report to them, but they don't lead. They manage, they boss, they control, but they don't lead the way. Leadership is leading the way. Okay. Now, the second definition that I had of leadership, leaders having a certain skill set. And I want you to put that to bed because, like I said earlier, we lead every day. You are an example. Whether it's a good example or a bad example, we are examples. And every single day that we wake up, we are leading in some way. Okay. So, do you want to give your best? I want to teach you how to really be an extraordinary leader, an extraordinary leader. And by the way, leadership is loving your team, loving the people around you, and wanting the very best for them. So I did get that part right for sure. But it is also saying some really hard things to your team because you want the very best for them, right? Our job as leaders is to lead people. And when we see something in their character, something that is causing them disbelief, our job is to say, hey, I know what's holding you back. And if you're ready to hear it, I would love to share it with you. Okay. That's our job as leaders, is to help people become the very best. So we all lead in some way, but I'm going to up the game to extraordinary leadership. So let's talk about what it really means to be an extraordinary leadership. So organizational leadership, that's how we typically think of leaders. It begins with personal leadership. It begins with personal leadership. So I want you to think about this every day. Every day, do you make your bed? Every day, do you have breakfast? Every day, do you get your kids dressed? Every day, are you on time to work? Every day, do you do personal growth and development? Personal leadership starts before organizational leadership can begin. So to become the very best in an organizational style, you need to first lead yourself. And extraordinary leadership is things like this. On a Saturday, getting out of bed when you're tired, you want to stay in bed because it's cold outside, but you get up and you do your morning run anyway. That's extraordinary leadership. Extraordinary leadership is eating nurturing foods, foods that will replenish you and really give your body nutrition instead of going out to lunch with everyone else who's eating hamburgers. I remember doing this when I was practicing medicine. I would never go with the group that was going out to eat. Why? Because I valued what I put into my body. Because what I put into my body is what gives me energy. And I know that eating processed foods is not going to serve me well. Okay. So I was considered the weird one because I always ate well. I would rather be considered the weird one than to fill my body with stuff that is going to completely drain me. Okay. Extraordinary leaders stand out. I know sometimes there's amazing peer pressure, but you be you. Extraordinary leadership, or leadership in general, it's not a popularity contest. It really isn't. Extraordinary leaders aren't worried about being liked. They're not worried about being liked. It's about doing what is right. Okay? Extraordinary leaders aren't worried about being liked. It's about doing what is right. Okay? That is something that most people have a hard time with. I remember the first time I had a disgruntled patient, and they sent it through an email to the office manager, and the office manager sent it to me, and I was horrified. I felt like the world had just crumbled because I heard a complaint. Now the reality is, I know I gave great service, and so I had to put that to bed. But you guys, wanting to make everybody happy will never work as a leader. So don't focus on being liked. Just focus on doing the right thing for the majority of your team. Okay. Extraordinary leaders say no to the unimportant things so they can say yes to the important. Say no to the unimportant things so you can say yes to the important ones. And so you have to know what is important for you to grow to that next level of leadership. What is important for you today? Is it important for you to answer 500 emails? No, that's really not important. It's important for you to have business appointments. It's important for you to grow yourself. It's important for you to have those sales. Whatever it is that you do, make room for the important things. And sometimes you're going to have to say no to the unimportant. Extraordinary leaders let go of the chains of ordinary and they leave the crowd. The first part of my life, I was a part of that crowd. I wanted to be a part of that crowd, right? We don't want to be different. We want to be like everybody else. We want to dress like everybody else. We want to look like everybody else. I like her hair. I like her shoes, right? We want to be a part of that crowd. But extraordinary leaders, they release those chains of being ordinary and they leave the crowd. And so don't be afraid to stand outside of the crowd in your leadership. Extraordinary leaders know that it's lonely at the top. Of course it is. Of course it's lonely at the top, you guys, because you are leading the pack. You are leading the pack. But you know what? I'm going to tell you this. In all my years of leading, I've never been lonely. And you know why? Because there are always leaders just like me who are leading their pack and we hang together. So if you've heard that term, it's lonely at the top, what it means, of course, is that you're leading. That's why you are alone. You're standing outside of the crowd and you're leading first. Okay. Two more. Extraordinary leaders accept responsibility for their actions. This is one of the biggest character traits of an extraordinary leader is they take responsibility for their actions, take responsibility for what is good, of course, but we also need to take responsibility for those things that aren't working well. And sometimes that's hard to say, oh, this isn't working. We need to change something. And I'm sorry for bringing this in to our organization, whatever it is. But you have to accept responsibility. You cannot grow without accepting responsibility for your mistakes as well as the things that you do really well. Last one, extraordinary leaders commit to excellence. So every day, do you commit to excellence? And this is what I mean by excellence. Excellence to me is doing your job and then some. Doing your best and then some. That's excellence. Giving value and then some. Always going above and beyond. That's excellence. That's extraordinary leadership, you guys, is always giving more than what's expected. So remember, everybody leads, but be the one who chooses to lead extraordinarily. I don't even know if that's a word. Extraordinarily. It sounds like a word. Don't be afraid to stand out. Be different. Be different. And when we're different, you guys, sometimes people will think we're crazy. I have been told, you are so different. Why don't you ever eat this? You're so different. Why do you think like this? People may think you're crazy. They may think you're different because you stand out. But I want you to remember that many extraordinary leaders were laughed at before they were respected. Many extraordinary leaders were different and made fun of. Now everyone wants to be like them. So choose to be the best of the best. Choose to do your very best and then some. Choose excellence. That is what extraordinary leadership is all about. Thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast. This community is amazing, you guys. And I would love for you to be a part of it. If you would love to be a part of this community, you can request to be a part of my private Facebook group called Deanna's Diamonds. Go to deannaherron.net and request, and I will add you to this extraordinary group of leaders. Don't forget to rate this podcast and send a review. It would mean the world to me if you would give a 5-star review if this has added great value to you. And if it has added value, subscribe and share this podcast. I would love to hear from you as always. I answer every single one of my DMs. So go to my Instagram at Deanna Herron and let me know what you would like to hear, what you love. It's always an honor to hear from you. Don't forget to join me on next week's podcast. I've got some amazing things coming, and I can't wait to share with you. God bless you. Have an amazing Tuesday, amazing week, and I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday.